I'm absolutely thrilled to be here as an ally. When I get a chance to address a group like this, I think it's a real privilege. As Patty mentioned, my name is John Dathan, and I have the privilege to lead Insight Canada. I have been in the industry for a very, very, very long time. So I've seen a lot, I've learned a lot. The beauty of this industry is I continue to learn every day. So I'm glad to be here as your host, and I'm thrilled to have my colleague Suzanne. So maybe Suzanne, you could introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Also thrilled to be here. John, one of my favorite allies. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Suzanna Gallagher. I run our go-to-market strategy and solutions for our business. So that is a team of marketing, business development, portfolio management, and alliance management, that integrated approach. And I appreciate you bringing out the mental health, because as we talk about, the superpowers around our environment, I think, we lead people, we don't manage them, and leading through our experience and the new experiences that come every day are so important. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Maybe you could just give us a little bit more about kind of your journey. How did you get to this critical role that you play for Insight?
Yeah, so I won't be shy. I've been in the industry 30 plus years. I know I started very young, but been in the industry 30 years. And, not by plan, I've been fortunate enough throughout my career to be at a lot of different companies through acquisition. And so, whether it was innovation in the internet to innovation in cloud through the career, I've been fortunate to work with, what I believe are some of the smartest people in the industry. And really getting me to a place where I now have a team of phenomenal leaders that we are learning from each other through those years of experience. So 30 years, lots to learn, but I still learn every day. And I think that is one of the superpowers, really understanding being a steward of your own business. And how do you build that confidence? Like Chai said, right? Being confident around both your lows and your highs, and how you thrive in those environments, I think is a really important point to think about.
Yeah, that's well said. I go back. I'm actually in my 5th decade, which is just the scariest thing ever. But in January 1982, somebody sort of said to me, "Do you want to sell computers?" And my answer was yes, and I knew nothing about it. And I remained for a long time to be one magazine article ahead of my clients. And so I share that only because as people listening and thinking about a career in IT or how to advance their career in IT, we need to say yes sooner and figure out how, on an ongoing basis. And if we wait until we've got all the answers, I think we're going to miss the boat. So you and I have been asked here today to talk about the superpowers needed to lead in cloud, which essentially is kind of sharing what we believe what do we need in teammates, and what do we look for in terms of skills and experience and all that. So when you look for teammates to add, which I know you're doing on a regular basis, what are the immediate characteristics that come to mind that you could share?
Yeah, so IT, as you talked about in our industry, right? I was pre-med, and then and putting myself through school in business. And so when the decision became, hey, follow my passion around pre-med or follow my passion around business, I landed in IT on accident, right? It was part of my business financials. So, and I think 30 years later, and the speed of innovation, and what I love about the IT industry is that constant change, is that constant challenge, is that pursuit of always, to your point, even if it's just one article ahead of your customers, really having that thirst for knowledge. So when I meet with candidates, it is about where they believe. First, it's foremost, it's, do they know what their superpower is? Can they articulate it? Can they articulate their resilience and their change management and their transformation, regardless of functionally the role I'm looking at, right? If it's marketing or technical consulting, or so that being in tune with yourself and what drives you, and then that steward of whatever your area of expertise or your superpower is what I tune into right away, because that just tells me how they've been resilient through their career, how they've developed maybe multiple superpowers. Are they a generalist? Are they a specialist? What drives them in that confidence? And so I think, being a steward and really understanding you're not a master of all, right? how far ahead. There's so much going on in our industry and now in cloud all the time. And again, back to that speed of innovation, you really have to be purposeful about your paths, because having balance, which would be the next thing I'd talk about, right? Having balance in understanding what you're cultivating, what is your superpower, and what you need to be relevant to continue to build confidence with your clients and with your
Hmm.
teammates, I think is something people really need to be in tune to. So when I'm meeting with folks, I often don't even review anymore their CV. That's not where I start. I want to start personally about what drives them, what they're confident about. And then we can get to how it matches to the goal we're looking for in the market.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing from you a little bit is something that I believe in, and I describe it as you need to be a student of the business, right? So we need to add value to every interaction, every conversation that we have. And the only way to truly add value is through knowledge. And the beauty of where we are today is there is so much available to you, to everybody, in terms of how to advance your knowledge. I mean, Women in Cloud has all kinds of areas that they can help, but there's so many others. And whether it's the hyperscalers in the cloud business, whether it's Microsoft, Google, Amazon, there are so much out there to help us learn so that we can have that immediate impact, which quite frankly wasn't there as little as 5 to 7 years ago.
Right. This is an area I struggle, honestly, because I have this innate thirst for constant information, but there are still only 24 hours in the day. And people ask, well, how do you stay current? What do you do? It has
Mhm.
to be very purposeful. There are so many tools today, right? Whether it's through Google or alerts or your own kind of subscription based of what you're focused in. I think even just either whether it's LinkedIn or your money social platforms, I think you have to have a really a thoughtful plan and then realistic expectations,
Yep.
because otherwise you'll fall short in trying to learn everything. And so really having a plan, like I have 200 Google alerts. Is that effective for me? No. So I moved to saying, okay, what are the things I really can pay attention to? My top 5 partnerships, my top five portfolio trends in the market, my top 5 regions, right? Really narrowing in day to day where you're gonna put that 5% of your time, 10% of your time to forward your career, versus what generally out of interest you can take time to do. So it is about, for me at least, it's about organizationally knowing in the 24 hours a day we have, how much your time is being spent on what, and what's the ROI you expect from that time, whether
Yep.
that's spending time with people, spending time learning, spending time networking, spending time just with your team, with your family. Like, we make those investments and we need to make them purposefully with a result in mind, but that results in mind has to be realistic. Otherwise you will find yourself not fulfilled with your growth because you've maybe put too much on the table for you to believe you can be an expert in and still be relevant.
Yeah. Yeah. If the goalposts are too far away, we're just not going to get there. Right.
Correct.
The
Correct.
other thing that I love what you're saying is about the plan, because inside of that plan is the scheduling. If I don't schedule things, they are really just aspirational goals. And so I make sure that I put in my calendar the things that are going to help me, right? From simply, quite frankly, exercise. I schedule exercise, I schedule education, I schedule all of these things, because life has a way of taking over that calendar and just taking it away. And all of us, if we're going to be where we want to be, where those goalposts are, we have to get that done. So let me shift a little bit here. Like, there's so much going on right now, and it's not all great. Let's be candid. Major layoffs announced from Microsoft, from Google, from Amazon over the last 90 days. Some of the other technology manufacturers and things. So how do you think people should prepare and make themselves resilient to the changes that we're seeing in the marketplace?
Make yourself resilient, right? How do you make yourself resilient? It's a great question. I think that over the last 3 years, right, from pandemic, you could go back to, in our history, every crash, every economic strife, whether it was social, global economics, local economics, right, industry specific. The pandemic was a good example of so many people in their work and in their business models and in their financial models and in their personal models rethinking the balance of where they spend time. And what I hope and what I look for now is not about making yourself resilient, but understanding how you're resilient, right? Understanding what you have to do to thrive in challenge. And thriving in challenge is what we're talking about, right? So yes, we have, we still have low unemployment rate, yet hundreds and thousands of layoffs are happening in our industry, and they may be happening in areas where they're the hot and sexy part of the market, right? And does that mean, well, we overhired last year? Right? You can start to dissect why these companies are making those challenges, but if you're in that ecosystem and you understand where you thrive in that challenging environment, I think you'll be fine, right? It's more about recognizing the challenge. I always say, don't let any good crisis go to waste. There's no crisis that should go to waste. There is an opportunity in every crisis. There is a path out of every crisis. There's a problem to be solved. You just have to be astute at knowing what it is, evaluating the landscape, little Sun Tzu, know your terrain, and then adjust your plan to work that terrain. That is resilience. That is resilience, understanding how you adjust what you need to get to, know your goal, know your path, understand how you personally deal with challenge and resilience and in your resilience, and then putting that to work. It's also being astute of knowing, what, I don't thrive in chaos. I get really stressed at the uncertain. I am fearful economically of what's about to happen. Those are all appropriate emotions. What do you do with them? Right? What do you do with them? How do you really turn that into a resilience plan for yourself? When the pandemic started, I think, our entire ecosystem in the IT systems, right? I feel the same way now with the economic pressure upon us in different cases. It either accelerated transformation for clients, or it put it on halt and redirected to where their biggest challenge might have been their teammates' work environment, work from office, could be real estate, could be their client's challenge. But again, don't let any good crisis go to waste. There was a path, and mobilizing yourself and your teams, your plan, your vision to how to navigate that purposefully, I think is the way everyone just has to think about. I mean, I've always thought that way about IT because I think it thrives in chaos. It's always been chaotic for different reasons. So change management. Are you comfortable with change? I mean, I tell my team all the time, if you're comfortable right now, you're not asking the right questions.
Right.
You're not asking the right questions because there's some complacency and comfort that we just can surprise us if we're not careful. There is comfort in uncomfortable, and you have to understand how to feel that way.
I was given great advice a number of years ago, and that was get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? And I think that's something that we can all embrace it. And one of the analogies that I often make when I think about this sort of thing is I actually compare boxing to judo, which I'm sure lots of people are going, what the heck are you talking about? But if you think about the sport of boxing, it is two people that are sort of standing up against each other, and it is a combat, right? So punches are thrown from both sides, and it's all about overcoming the other through that force. When I think of judo, it's taking the force from the other and making that work with you. So if somebody's coming at you, you're taking that force and you're using it to your gain. And I think a lot of the things that you've just described about that turmoil and the challenges that we are currently facing, which, by the way, we were pandemic privileged in IT. And so this is just that pendulum, I think, coming back a little bit. It is not the doom and gloom. But if we have the choice, we can kind of resist all of these changes and put our heels in and say, nope, that's it. Or we can take that judo effect that says, okay, things are changing a little bit. So how do I move myself, and how do I use the weight of that change to go where this is headed? Do you agree with that?
I do. I think in that, when you first, a while ago, when you first gave me that analogy, it immediately resonated with me. But then your self-preservation says, but wait a minute, I'm never going to be good at judo. So you know what I'm saying, right? If I'm an athlete and I'm a boxer and I'm not good at judo, that's that self-awareness. So, well, do I have to be good at judo? It's more about the understanding of how do I take the challenge and turn it into that opportunity, right? Through strategy, through rethinking my approach, maybe through educating myself to be more efficient in a particular area. It isn't I'm not good at it, so I won't survive, right? You really have to take those out external pressures and turn them into that positive force for yourself. And there's many different ways to do that.
Yeah, fully agree. So on with us today, we've got a number of different folks, some that want to get into the industry, some that are in the industry. There's also folks that are leading people. And this is an interesting time to be leading people, I think. So what are your thoughts kind of around these superpowers, and how should a leader help their teams kind of continue to grow and prosper?
Yeah, I always say we lead people, we don't manage them, right? We manage business. We lead people. And I think personalizing, understanding your team, like all things, are on some bell curve of experience, of their paradigm of success. If you follow cover knowledge, right? Everybody comes to the table with some idea of success or their path. I think as leaders, challenging those paths, holding teammates accountable for those paths while you're supporting them of understanding how to navigate that. I talk to my team a lot. I would love to be able to stay up all night saying, how do I make John more successful? John's great. He's great. How do I make John more successful? I can't make John more successful. I can lead John in where he wants to focus. I can help John broaden his knowledge. I can give critical feedback to John about maybe the path he's chosen doesn't on paper look like something he's going to excel at. So that feedback loop and that constant kind of holding accountability to your path, holding the team accountable to their path, and being 150% committed to helping them and guiding them on that journey, is a different conversation. Whenever you get in with a team and they're like, this is going on and this is hard as that, and I need to do this, and I have done this for 20 years, I should be X. And I'm like, well, okay, so tell me why. Like, and why isn't just I've accomplished this and these are my results, right? It's really understanding the path of success that they envision and bringing some reality to that game on a regular basis, so that that support is driving that growth for them. But it does take more transparency than I think in the past many people are comfortable with, right? Critical feedback is a gift. It's never comfortable. It's a gift. And so, when times are hard again, this is the most exciting time in the number of years in our market. And so there's so much to be excited about. And when you look at community, 70,000 communities here, and the top 100 that Chai and Patty were talking about, there are more opportunities than ever to gain that feedback, not just from your direct management, right? And down to your teams, but we like to call our A team, right? Who's my A team? My team of peers, internal and externally. Who's my A team of my manager? And then who's the A team of my teammates? And are they really using that network in their A teams, whether it's resolve conflict, hyper growth, get critical feedback, validate what they believe? Perception is the co-pilot to reality. And so I always tell people, like, if they believe their reality is they're the best at what they do, but the perception is not that they're the best, you got to manage the perception, and you got to understand why it's there. You don't compromise or change yourself because of that, but there's a gap to how you're perceived versus your reality. And the more we narrow that gap, right, the more effective you'll be.
Yeah, you've covered a lot of areas there. I mean, so much of that, kind of leader teammate experience, number one is trust, right? I mean, you can't have the happiness of the dialogue you just described without trust. And so both sides, we have to continually earn and preserve that trust, because healthy challenging each other is where good things come from, right? None of us need yes people in either direction, right? We don't need a cheerleader as a coach, right? We need somebody that's constructive, that's gonna educate us and guide us on that path, versus and we don't need anybody who's just going to agree to everything we've said, right? So all of that comes into that relationship. And one of the things that I think everybody should try to do is almost have a personal board of directors, right? So who are the people that you surround yourself that can give you the kind of guidance you need? One of my experiences in the years of business is mentorship to me is very interesting, because many people look for mentorship and truly are looking for mentorship. But I think a larger majority are actually raising their hand to say, hey, if there's something out there that's, around a promotion or whatever, I just want to make sure I'm known. Right?
Yeah, sponsorship versus mentorship.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
right. And so for all of us, and looking for that, those around you, and it's not just the person that you work for, but those around you that can help provide you that guidance, keep you in the guardrails, keep your eyes on the prize, so to speak. So those goal lines we talked about earlier, really, really important.
I learned that early in my career. And I know it's not that it's a negative story. It's many have experienced this, but early in my career, I thought I was killing it. I was a senior manager. I believed I was director, valued, and I was passed for a promotion because the other person had a family and I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I was furious and felt, totally slighted from that. But it was a checkpoint for me about, okay, whether that was the right thing or that was the right reason, or someone made the wrong comment about why, having to go back in and own, okay, so I thought I had accomplished this. I thought I was on that path. I thought we had knocked it out of the park. And it shouldn't have been about a compare to what the other person did, right? This is what I thought my path was. And I still want to be on that path. And so tell me what I have to do to meet your expectations to be on that same path. And it was an uncomfortable conversation, right? At the time I was young. I was afraid to ask for what I wanted because I thought I had just deserved it. But it started a path for me of understanding, having the confidence to know what I want to ask, being prepared to show what I thought I'd accomplished, and most importantly, taking the critical feedback for that path and holding myself and my manager accountable to those next steps. It were on me to take that critical feedback. It was on me to hold him accountable and me accountable to that path.